The great actress has had a humble and endearing journey and also spoke to us very heartedly on establishing herself as an actress in one of the toughest industries. Currently on a US visit filming for some upcoming projects, Ruby highlighted on the emerging spaces in television and Indian movies and the strong voices showcased through that. Let's take a look at our conversation with Ruby Kakar, a firm believer in pursuing one's dreams. Talk to me a little bit about the switch that you had in your journey and how that experience has formed you as a person, especially in the world of acting.
Yeah, well, I think the media field and the acting field, although they're both in front of the camera, I think they are very, very different.
Yeah.
And so the feeling that you get inside is also different, right? And I think that I feel more connected with the acting world than I do with the media world, although that was a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, it was a lot of interaction as well, wouldn't you say that?
It was definitely, and it got me to many places, it got me to meet many people, but so has acting, I believe.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Talk to me about starting off in big shows that you've done in India, especially something like Porous, which was such a mega hit, and something that's really talked about in the historical epics in India. Talk to me about how that experience sort of formed you and your personal love with acting that you sort of developed during those processes.
Yeah, well, before joining the show,
Yeah.
I really did not know all of the ins and outs of the actual story. No, of the actual of the story of Porous, because it's a historical show, and so I knew a little bit, but I didn't really know that much. And so while joining the show, there were so many words that I had never seen before, and I would ask the AD, like, what is this? And even he wouldn't know. So I'd have to actually get on set and ask the director, what is this? And he would tell me what it was. Or I would call my mother. I would call my mother here in the US, and she'd be like, yeah, this means this. And she knows the insides and outs of the story.
Of course.
So she could tell me like everything I wanted to know, even before getting on set. So that was a really big advantage to me.
Talk to me about maybe some of the hardest times you've seen in the world of acting. I know you had the comfort of being in front of the camera, so I'm sure you weren't super camera shy. But talk to me about what it takes to be an actor. I think quite often we just sort of, make it so simplified, and we think that acting doesn't really take a lot of work and ethic, but it's a course of its own. Wouldn't you say that?
It is. It takes a lot of hard work and many long hours. I can't tell you how many times I've been on set where it would be like I have to get on set at 4 a.m. and I'm not done until 2 a.m. And then the next day we're like, just a little bit, just give us a little bit of sleep. Because you have to do hair, you have to do makeup, and there's a lot of waiting around also, right? But that's really good because in TV there's a really quick turnover. So you don't get the lines that much in advance, and you want to be able to prepare. You want to be able to put your study to use. You want to be able to do all of your scene study, all of your dialogue study, and sometimes you just don't have the time to do that. So you really have to be like on your feet about it.
How did you sort of prepare to be a better actor or really work on your craft? You didn't have much of an acting background, correct?
Right.
And also going from TV, I can tell you all for a fact, it's very different. You're always creating content in a different aspect. Talk to me about how, in that aspect, did you sort of work on that craft? And I'm sure you're still working on it, right? It's like an ever-growing process.
It's a continuous process. It never stops.
Yes,
even after 20 years, when I get to that point, there's still going to be things that you can learn. And I think that's true of any field. But in this one in particular, I think that much of acting comes from your experiences in real life.
Oh, wow.
Sure, I've never been an oracle in real life before, but there are things that bring me to the point where I can use my experiences in real life on the set for the show, and I think that that's really good.
What sort of worked the best for, Porous, according to you, in that aspect? It was a spectacular show.
Thank you.
It really hit so many things. I know my own parents, they loved watching it when it was airing. Talk to me about, filming a historical. It's a very different process in the Indian television industry. I'm sure you must have had an abundance of knowledge to learn. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, because it's an historic show, I did learn a lot while I was on the set and while I was shooting before and after. But the most important thing is it's very particular, right? Things have to be on point with its time period.
Yes.
Maybe in other shows you can just kind of like go here and there with some of your costumes or some of your hairstyles or the things you say. But on Porous, no, it has to be on point. You have to be really using the same language and the same words. Because, you know, some of the words that you might have used today are not going to be during that time, right? So if you accidentally say one word instead of another, no, you have to reshoot that because it really has to be on book.
So it was a very strict filming.
It was, actually.
Talk to me a little bit more about your take on Indian television. You know, we're seeing a lot of diverse content.
Yeah.
Obviously, digital platforms have taken off and really, you know, seen success. And also the YouTube world, the Netflix world, they're really exploring and sort of, you know, giving more spaces to pretty much all kind of content you can talk about.
Yeah.
So, you know, as a young, you know, Indian actress, especially somebody who's traveling between both the countries, talk to me about your take on it and how the industry is sort of evolving.
Yeah, it's definitely evolving so much more now than it was before because of the digital world, and I think that creates a lot of opportunity for many people who want to get in the industry, and also for those people who don't want to stay towards the standard that we usually have in television, right? Because of the digital world, we have a little, you know, diversity in terms of the content that we're producing, and I think that's very good because that's allowing a lot of people who probably wouldn't be heard to be heard.
That is so true. That is so true. You know, what's your take on the fact that these days there's a huge push, especially in the Indian television industry or just content making industry, when we're looking at you know, our audience, that we want more realism, we want more narratives, we want topics that are inspiring the youth. You know, we don't necessarily always want the Saas Bahu TV serials.
That's right.
Your take on it, I love getting that perspective from a female actress.
Yeah, well, I think that we should still have the Saas Bahu serials. It's not something that should be like negated entirely. That has a very big audience. There are many people who like that, who like to see that. But I do think that, you know, the realism that we're bringing into things, the focus on the youth, that's very important, especially because our youth has changed so much over the last few years than it has over, like, perhaps a longer period of time, you know?
That is true.
And I think that because of the digital space that we have, that is coming into play. And, you know, not only that, but we should take, you know, as youth, we should take responsibility for the things that we put on, you know, online and on these digital platforms. We should bring up topics that are important, topics where we want there to be a change in. You know, we should take the power of that and really make a change in the world that is good.
I totally agree with that. What kind of topics sort of inspire you in that aspect when you're looking at now where you can basically explore all the mediums because you have the access to it as well?
Right.
What sort of motivates you? What kind of content do you think is exactly what our media currently right now needs, and television and film?
You know, I think whatever it needs, it's actually getting there. So more things about empowering women, perhaps, especially women who want to be educated. I think that's very important, especially in India, because we still have a large amount of the population who is not allowed to be educated, and I think they're doing a good job in going in that direction. But I think that there's much more that we can do about it.
Well, it was so great to have you with us here, Ruby.
Thank you.
Having a fellow Punjaban here is always great for me. One last advice you can give to all of the young women watching you right now. I would love for you to give a word of advice to them. Anything you're feeling right now, especially with all the South Asians watching us.
Yeah, I would say that follow your heart, because your inner voice is something that no one else can hear, and no one else knows why it's there, but it's there for a reason. So give it some importance and try to follow it as much as you can.